NetSparker, the developers of desktop and cloud-based web application security scanners that enable you to automatically identify vulnerabilities in your web applications and web services. NetSparker scanners employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities with their proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at netsparker.com or email at contact@netsparker.com. Signal Sciences secures the most important web applications, APIs, and microservices of the world's leading companies, protecting over 7,500 applications and 150 billion production requests per week. Signal Sciences Next-Gen WAF and RASP help companies increase security and maintain site reliability without sacrificing velocity, all at the lowest total cost of ownership. Signal Sciences' patented technology protects any application against any attack with integrations into any DevOps toolchain. Signal Sciences, demand more from your WAF. Learn more at signalsciences.com/PSW. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. This is episode 587. Just a quick plug for InfoSec World, April 1st through the 3rd at Disney's Contemporary Resort. InfoSec World 2019 is the place where we'll be as Security Weekly. I'll be speaking, many others in the community, as well as a great diversification of topics at InfoSec World. We do have a registration code. Doug, I want you to read the registration code. Can you see that?
Oh,
or do you need to put on your glasses?
See, I say that
ready,
as
Paul. I can take
the
it.
registration
I can do this
code.
one.
Yeah,
It is OS 19-SEC Week for 15% off.
In NATO, please.
Is what?
NATO.
Yeah.
Oh, in
Can you
NATO?
do the-
I think that's why you were.
Is it
Oscar?
Phonetic.
Oscar Sierra 19er.
Oscar Sierra 19er. Sierra Echo Charlie Whiskey Echo Kilo.
Yeah!
Yeah.
All right, but what's the dash? Hyphen.
It's a dash.
Dash.
Stroke.
Is that an
Actually,
It's like
stroke.
your dash.
Is that an M
dash?
dash?
Live your dash, but
No one
that
is
an
going to
M
ever
dash?
forget
Morse code?
our discount codes because they're going to replay Doug's.
Is that a real
It's
dash or
stroke.
an M
And
dash?
my favorite punctuation mark, the bang.
The bang.
The bang.
She bangs.
Bang. The problem is you only get the stroke instead of the bang.
I have a joke. I'll tell you off air, Larry. Remind me later.
We'll be
Coward.
playing this discount code in Morse code for the rest of the episode.
Anytime we are all gathered here in the studio for a special episode, the last time was episode 500. It is now 87 episodes later that we had to break out the gigantic tables and invite everyone here, and we're having a holiday party.
This is
Ho, ho, ho.
just like putting a sheet of plywood on top of the pool table. No, this is not
No,
like
no.
putting a sheet of plywood on top
You
of the
know,
pool table.
We don't really need excuses to drink and be merry and talk about security, but I'm glad we all did tonight. And
drink to that.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Welcome.
And
Cheers.
so
Cheers.
I ceremoniously would like to open a bottle of champagne and share it with
And
those.
it's
at
been
least in
87
studio.
episodes since that tragic blinding incident
That's
with the champagne bottle.
So here we go. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Watch the left.
Just missed the light.
Oh, yeah.
Just missed the light.
And there we have it.
Holy cow.
That reminds me, Larry, you used, with the 750s of beer, you used to be really good about firing them to bounce off the ceiling
Oh, yes.
into the interns.
Yes.
We going
Good old
clockwise or
pay-per-view.
counterclockwise?
Larry, I will pass this to you to pass down.
Clockwise.
Everyone has a red Solo cup that we're drinking champagne out of.
Because
it's Security
I'm
Weekly.
just gonna pretend that I'm like halfway down the line here and hold my glass up.
There
Hold
you
your
go.
glass.
There
Raise
we
a
go.
glass.
We're just going to pretend we're
Jason
filling
Wood
it.
is here with us. Okay, so I'm going to introduce everyone. I'll
While they're
start
pouring.
to my right because I'm right-handed, and Mr. Larry Pesci, who's been here for probably more episodes than any other host on Security
I think,
Weekly.
Well, I think there's only one other host that's been here more often than I have been.
Yeah,
You.
it's probably me, and then you. Larry was on episode 1 and has been with us ever since, and a staple for this show for certain. So, Larry, very nice to have you here in studio to celebrate the holidays.
Absolutely.
I mean, why not?
Absolutely. I work today, too.
We did some work. We actually did.
We
some
all
work
worked
in the
today.
studio. Yeah, we did.
Shifty eyes. Yeah, shifty eyes. I worked today.
You did a little bit of work
I did.
today.
I did.
You were here pretty early today.
I was.
one of the newer members to the Security Weekly family.
The Virgin.
For better or for worse, Mr. Jason Albuquerque is here with us. Jason, welcome to
Thank you
your
so much for
first
having
appearance
me.
on Paul Security Weekly.
Absolutely. I love it. Thanks for having me.
Jason is one of our illustrious co-hosts on Business Security Weekly. Jason, you're the CISO for Carousel Industries, and I don't know how we haven't hung out more. Jason and I have a lot in common.
So
We've
much
been
in common.
information security in Rhode Island for some time, and we
right.
never hung out. And when we found each other, it was like a bromance.
100% bromance.
Dude, we need to hang out.
It was absolutely a
here we
bromance,
are.
and I'm so happy to be here, and thanks so much for having me.
Yes,
And I
thank
remember
you.
how you used to feel about me that way, Paul.
And thanks. But Jason, I have to thank you for filling in for me when I'm off.
That's right.
traveling
Anytime.
wherever.
Anytime.
Larry, not taking anything away from our relationship. It's special. It's special.
Just
He's
giving,
just adding +1.
just
Larry.
giving more.
That's
right.
That's it.
That's
right.
You get the three of you.
It's
All right.
it's bromance polyamory.
That's right.
Wow.
Miss April Wright is here with us in studio. No stranger to Security Weekly. I'm so glad you could come down today and hang out.
Well, I tried to get out, but you kept pulling me back in.
April, your
Well, I mean,
sense of
it's the
humor
duck-
is just one reason why I love
That's
to
what
have you
April
on our
said.
shows. It's
I mean, I
awesome.
wouldn't exactly say we're trying to pull you back in. It's just the duct tape in the back closet. I mean,
You really can't
just can't-
escape.
you can't
I know.
say
Well,
it.
Paul, it's all about the duct tape, and he wants to be on that chair. I don't know.
I tell you what. For
Listen,
B-sides,
all these years I've been trying to tell you, gaff tape. Not duct
right?
tape.
I know.
Gaff tape.
We have a lot
And
of gaff
Jack,
tape
for,
on the floor
for
right now.
B-sides, I requested duct tape, Vaseline, and unicorns as my special speaker accoutrements, I guess you could say. And
Any special requests?
Yeah,
Yes.
they provided that for me on
Absolutely.
stage.
That's your
Yep.
rider.
Be careful what you ask
You have
for.
a Vaseline rider?
That's
Wow.
Yeah, he likes to ride the
He
Vaseline.
needs Vaseline to
And
ride
the
her.
unicorns all at the same time. I mean,
All right, Deadpool.
Man, you always told me it was for chapped lips.
yeah, that's
Oh,
my
it's-
story, and I'm sticking to it, all right, Jason?
He never said which lips.
That's true.
Or whose.
Or whose.
This went downhill
Wow.
quick.
Really fast.
Yeah.
I'm so
well,
glad.
that's it for
When
our
we got
Mr.
to-
Brent
when we
Dukes
got
is
to
here with
April.
us. Brent was featured on Application Security Weekly and did a fantastic job, and so is here with us in the Security Weekly family tonight as well.
Thank you so much for having me. I don't know why I'm here, but I'm very excited to be here.
Well, I tell you what, Brent, one reason is you and I share very similar backgrounds in technology. I think probably similar age. We won't disclose our age on the show, but
Okay, that's
similar
good.
ages. And
Tell yourself that, Paul. Tell yourself that.
Oh, wait, we can, because we'll feel better, because Jack and Jeff are here with us, so it's totally fine. We won't feel old.
Wait, do I have to say that again? You'll be old someday, too.
If I'm
I
lucky.
let you.
That too.
I was told I was supposed to just look pretty for the cameras. That was my job today.
Job
so-
complete.
And you're doing a mediocre
Done.
job
Thank
of that.
Done.
Thank you. Thank
Done.
you. Mediocre
My
job.
job is done.
Going around the table, Mr. Doug White is sitting on the senior side.
111 years ago, when I was 10 years
side
old.
over there. If you look on my left, it's the senior
It
side.
was nice of you not to put chairs here so we could just roll our wheelchairs up.
It's the side with the extra light so they can read the menus.
we gave him a discount on their whiskey.
I feel like we should have done a beard, no beard side.
They showed up for the show at 4 o'clock. Totally fine.
We heard there was a discount.
It's the geriatric side of the panel today.
Welcome to the happy hour.
I'm having Ensure and Jack Daniels.
The home will be calling soon. We need
Are we
to get
going
him
to
in
be
an
done
Uber.
soon? It's almost time for Wheel of Fortune.
And Golden Girls, God damn it.
Oh, shit.
That rose is so hot.
Dr. Doug White is there right there, okay? And now Mr. Jeff Mann is there.
He's
I am
always
here.
watching my shows.
And I have to give a quick shout out to a friend I made in South Dakota at Wild West Hackenfest. Sent us some authentic Templeton rye. You can read about it on the wiki. And thank you very much. And I think the bottle will be gone before the end of the broadcast.
Oh,
Nice
yeah.
one.
Thanks a lot, Trent.
Thank
Going
you,
fast.
Trent.
Thank you,
Mr.
Trent.
Jack Daniel is here in studio to round out our geriatric subsection of the show today.
And Jack has brought a friend.
And Suffering Bastards with
Suffering
me.
Bastards,
Yes,
yeah.
I'm here. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And finally, on the geriatric side of the
Yeah,
table,
last but not least,
a man who's hundreds of years old.
He's like Matt's like a junior geriatric. I think I'll call you Matt.
Oh, I thought it was Santa.
Well, see,
Saint Nick.
I
It's
was
Saint
just
Nick.
trying to catch up to Jack's beard, and I can't grow it fast enough, so I had to fake it.
There you go. There you
Had to
go.
fake it.
And of course, on the lines remotely, Mr. Jason Wood is here with us, broadcasting live from the massage parlor. Jason, welcome.
Absolutely. Good to be here with
Are
everybody.
there going to be geisha girls
Nice to
walking
have you,
around behind
Jason.
him?
Mr. Keith Hoodlet is here with us remotely as well. Keith, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Nice to have you. Mr. Joff Thayer is also here with us remotely.
I'm here. I'm back.
Yes.
It's great to be here.
It's almost like you're here, but you're not here, guys.
I know.
Sad.
He said it was great to be there.
That's true, right? Not to be here, right?
Well, I really should have stumbled my way.
We can
up
neither
to you,
confirm nor
but-
deny that, April. Can neither confirm nor deny.
And last but certainly not least, remotely, Mr. Lee Neely is here with us, who has the same, you can't see it, but we have the same similar sweaters on that say Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
So embarrassing.
That's right. Twinsies.
That's so faux
But Lee,
pas.
do you have your kilt on? That's what I want to know.
Skirt. Stand up.
Oh, skirt.
Show me what you got.
He's not wearing it.
He's on a podcast. He's not wearing pants or anything, right? It's
SpongeBob boxers.
So I picked Matt up this morning. I've got my kilt on or skirt on today. Matt's got a Santa suit, and we walk into the liquor store, and we do a lot of shopping. I mean, we had to get
A lot. Oh,
liquor for
we bought so much
today,
liquor.
Christmas
It's crazy.
gifts, cigars, booze, the whole thing. It
Yeah.
was a big spend, and they must have been looking at us like, "Who are these two guys dressed like idiots?" And then, like, when
You know what they were
started adding
saying,
things to
Paul.
our cars, like people were running around, like scurrying to us, like bringing us.
Like,
I went,
oh,
"We
wait,
need a
you need
case
one
of
of
that,
these? You need a
and we need
case
one
of
of
that."
those, and we need some booze.
Oh,
and we
wait a
need
minute. These
beer."
idiots got money. That's what they
We need
said.
cigars. Yes.
Wait, they're rich idiots.
Oh,
Wait.
shit.
So Paul walks into the liquor store. Well, first we walk into the liquor store. Guy's walking out with his bag, and he goes.
It's
he
like
looks-
8:50 a.m. in the morning, mind you.
Right. He looks at us and goes, "Well, you guys are festive today," and we're like, "Yeah, Merry Christmas!"
Merry
and we
Christmas.
walk in, right?
Enjoy your breakfast.
And you two are also walking into the same liquor store that the same gentleman has walked out.
Correct.
You shouldn't throw
Yes.
stones
Yeah.
too hard on this.
Right, exactly. And so Paul walks in, he goes, "I need a case of this, a case of that, a case of this." We're like, the wine was easy, but the bourbon was
bourbon took
hard.
some time, yeah.
So my Colorado friends will love this story because he walks in and Paul goes, "I want a case of what's that?
Blanton's.
What? Yeah. Well, you didn't know what it was called." He goes,
I couldn't
"That
remember the
bottle,
name.
that round bottle." I go, "Blanton's?" And he goes, "Yeah." She and the person in there, she goes, "The one with the horse on the top?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Yeah, we had like 2 bottles and they're gone."
Gone.
Case? What are you talking about? There's no case.
holy shit.
Now, in my defense, in previous years, I've gone to the same store where they know the family, Joyle's family. You've seen them on
great,
this show.
great people. I
Awesome
love
family.
them. Love
Yeah.
them.
I love
Yep.
the Joyle's
Good
family,
cigars.
right? Good cigars.
Good cigars.
That's where we were this morning.
That's where we were.
And I've bought a case in the past. I just happened to time it right. So then I think we wanted to buy Michter's, a case of Michter's.
Yeah, so this poor guy's running back and forth.
Yeah,
back
Tom-
and forth.
poor Tommy,
and,
the son.
and I go,
Yeah, yeah,
"Tom,"
yeah.
I'm like, "Tom, just tell me what you have cases of bourbon in the back because we're buying it, right?" And so the poor guy goes back. He goes, "I got Basil Hayden's." I'm like,
Yes.
"Yeah."
We'll take that. Done.
This is like the adult version of shopping for like a whole bunch of like Cabbage Patch dolls. or
Yes,
something.
it is. Yes, yes.
That one Christmas gift you just can't get. Yeah. It's
Right, exactly right.
I won't Elmo.
Well,
God damn
I
it.
really wanted Peppy Van Winkle, but I knew that wasn't going to be in stock.
Right.
I waited in line for an
that
hour.
overpriced crap.
I agreed.
Hey,
Jack,
if
it does
somebody
get
else,
overpriced.
if somebody else is buying you Pappy, drink it, but for the price.
But
if you're
suggested
gonna spend
retail, it's
stu-
fine.
For the love of
people
God, don't
check
buy
it.
it yourself.
Right. Yeah. If you're going to spend stupid
But that's
money,
the problem with
very
Blanton's
old
now.
Fitzgerald.
Right.
If you're going to spend stupid money, go for the very old Fitzgerald. But
Okay.
otherwise, go for Black Maple.
So
Hill.
speaking of drink, I just want to raise a glass. We all have champagne. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
everyone.
Christmas,
Cheers,
everyone.
bitches.
Before we get into it. So I've titled this segment, What the Heck Are... Excuse me.
What the hell are we talking about?
What the hell are we talking about?
Where are we? What year is it? Who's the president? Wait.
We have no president.
What the
I
heck
tell
are...
you who the president is, but you wouldn't believe me.
Yes. Reagan, the actor?
No. Biff. It's Biff. It's Biff.
Oh, Calvin.
It's Biff.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
So,
God.
what the heck are security basics? This question comes up quite often. What should organizations be doing to meet the basic security requirements? We often hear these terms, security basics, minimum security standards, or dear Lord, security hygiene. What does it all mean? Is it the same for everyone? Will people point to different resources to attempt to define security basics? But what really works, what doesn't? Does compliance, as Jeff was pointing out before the segment, play into the picture? I want to start there with the panel of
didn't say
a lot
anything
of
about
people.
I've got one thing to add.
Keith, please
Keith,
go.
Go. Start us off.
It all depends on context of the company. Are you using the cloud or are you not using the cloud? Are you using containers?
Wait,
or are you
wait,
not
wait,
using
wait,
it?
wait.
You went too far.
Back the
Wait a
truck
minute.
up.
You
Back
actually
up.
went too far. Because
You-
No,
you
hold
are-
on.
First
I'm
of
going
all,
to come back to that for a second.
you are using the cloud and you are using containers. You may just not know it.
right.
So,
but
so
more
that's fair,
importantly,
but the one thing I would add is it's constantly evolving and changing. The basics will never be just the basics, right? It's no longer just patching your Windows
Keith,
box.
I disagree. I think containers in cloud are security applied differently, but I think the basics and fundamentals still apply. And
I agree.
For the fundamental
Yeah,
things
for the
that you have
fundamental.
to do, it's the same.
My
right?
cloud
The-
instance needs to be patched.
You're all
Thank you, Jason.
hello
you
there.
are all too in the weeds.
I thought Amazon
Yeah.
took care of patching.
April's going to pull us up.
I'm gonna pull you out.
I know where she's going.
Time
Raise the
out.
roof. Okay.
April.
So it's not about what you're using. It's not about where you are. It's about what are you protecting. What are the crown jewels? What's the
Yeah.
data? What's at stake?
Well, yes, but
That's
it's a little
the
more
very
than that.
first basic.
What's your risk profile? What's your risk appetite?
I think that's based on what your data is.
It is, but you have to tie the two together. You have to understand that I have critical assets, and I'm willing to take risks in certain areas and risks not in certain areas.
Sure.
Right, and so we back it all the way up.
But to April's point, that's based on the data you're protecting.
It is, but it requires us to do inventory,
Sure.
which isn't on this list, but should be. But more importantly is understanding. Is it where?
It's CI security's on there, so it's on the top 5 asset.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Configuration
yeah, but when
management.
in his little bullet point, what we didn't do is say we got to back up, we got to understand what's important, and then what's the criticality? How do we want to address risk? What's our risk appetite? And then start to understand. Okay, based on that, what types of controls should I put in place? And there is a risk assessment component to this that has to happen first, that then drives policy, controls, and then we can dig into all these weeds. But that basic principle still has.
No, wait a second. Wait.
That's all bullshit. We're just going to buy insurance, and that'll absolve us of everything.
Hold on, April.
You're speaking CEO language now.
So,
Look, somebody's got to throw the grenades on the table here.
Hold on, April.
even before you can define what your risks and your threats are, you have to determine what are your requirements. Do you have a high integrity requirement? Does your data have to be absolutely right?
Yeah.
Because it may not have to be available all the time, but it may have to be right all the
If
time.
you're going to do a
So
FIPS
you
100,
have to have
you're right.
that CIA
that's a
kind of component
critical
totally
thing.
defined. That's the basic. Is
Yeah,
is
but-
it high? Is it medium? Is it low?
But
But that
Hold
FIPS
on.
100 analysis is driving the initial kind of risk assessment that then
It drives
drives
everything.
which controls you should implement,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So patching may be important in certain areas because I have critical systems, but it may not be important in others, right?
Yes.
To your point is we're in the weeds a little bit, but we got to pull that up a little bit, right? And do that initial assessment and understand what's critical, what's not critical, what is confidential, what needs high integrity and availability, And that will help us form a set of controls that we should then start to implement that we can then track back and measure.
So Matt, to your point, it's asset classification. And asset classification means a lot of different things. It's not just your technology assets, it's your data assets and your human assets.
Yeah.
Right? You need to take the whole picture into play.
Customers,
and when I look
parties,
at
the supply chain,
absolutely 100%.
the ecosystem.
And basically at the end of the day, it's aligning to what the business needs are, right? So for my business, we need to make sure we're 100% protecting our customer information.
Yeah.
If somebody hacks
so
my,
you're
if somebody
at
hacks
Facebook?
no,
Oh shit! Sorry.
if somebody compromises
Experian.
my marketing server, I don't give a shit. Take every damn PDF we have on my marketing server and deploy it across the entire
it's
globe.
Right.
Low
But if you're
I don't
confidentiality.
care.
But
I don't
look,
care.
if your marketing server has customer data, different story.
Different story.
Right.
But that's classifying the assets. Right?
And it's all sitting on the hard floor of compliance. So I mean, there's just
We're not
there's-
even
there's
talking
a-
about
No,
compliance.
but I mean, but it's that's where it starts. because
No,
you
it's
have-
not where
it doesn't
starts.
necessarily.
No, I think it
See,
starts
you
with
see what I
Because
do?
you can
I'm
have
I'm out.
you can have you can have security without compliance, which is why it's not.
And you can have compliance without security.
You can definitely have compliance.
But
without
security
It's called
should be
PCI.
I disagree with that if you're doing it right.
If you're doing it right.
If you're actually following whatever compliance standard you have to follow, you're doing perhaps the basics, if not
But,
more.
But you're doing table stakes. So for me, compliance is table stakes, right? At the end of the day, if you're doing security well, you're going to meet all those compliance
Right.
frameworks.
Exactly.
but
the other way to meet compliance, those compliance baselines, is to use the big consultancies that'll rubber stamp you because they just have shitheads from pen test emails.
That's past the buck. But
I
that's,
have-
that's
Well,
pass
pen
through.
test, but
That's
that
pass through.
saves you money so you can hire actual security
That's
companies.
compliance bingo.
I gotta.
I half agree with you.
Yeah.
Yes, if you are doing good security, you will probably be compliance ready, but I almost guarantee that you will not have the documentation to prove it.
All right, I gotta jump in here because
I
we're
agree.
talking
Hold on,
about
hold
basic.
on. Brent has the
The
floor.
We're talking
Adonis
about
wants to say
security
something.
basics, and you're all talking about profiling your risk of different areas of your business. But a basic is: do you even know what data you have in your business?
No.
I agree. I
Do you know what
Ah.
assets are on your
That's-
network? Do you
exactly.
understand
That's
the
the- that's the
classification?
classification.
Do you
That's it.
understand the criticality? That's part of a risk assessment, or it should be. See,
Should be, yeah.
right? It should be because
It's even
if-
a precursor to the risk assessment.
It should be.
Yeah, but
it's
it
not
leads
always.
into the risk assessment that then allows you to say, okay, based on this specific set of assets and data, I need to apply these controls. Compliance plays a role in defining the controls that I need to say, well, I need to make sure that I am compliant with these based on the risk profile of those assets and apply a set of controls. But those controls are not blanket for the whole organization. They vary. And I think that's the one thing that we tend to forget a little bit is that controls can vary and change in based on your risk profile.
And controls can be different. They can be technology
Yes.
controls, policy controls, right?
Yes.
So they can be
Management,
All right, hold
operational,
on,
technical
hold on,
controls.
hold on.
Yes.
Time out.
want the
Remotely,
football.
I know it's hard with a lot of people. Jason, Lee, Keith, and Joff. I think what we're debating right now is when, where, and somewhat how does data classification play into your overall risk profile? Is data classification the first thing you should do? I agree, yes. I want to hear from someone remotely because it's hard because you're not here to weigh in.
Okay, can I weigh in?
Please, Joff.
Okay. So my opinion is classification of data should be the first thing you do. Because I think it's a baseline activity that level sets the organization and brings a perspective into what's important to them and what is not. And it also allows you to bring out of that activity what servers and applications should be prioritized into different buckets based on the data that they are managing. So I think data classification's extremely important. Now, I do think that there are organizations that are guilty of overcomplicating it. Honestly, I think in the world of data classification, most organizations should probably have two classifications. That is, oh shit, this matters to me, and oh shit, this does not. And it should really be that simple. And then they should work their system from there. But I think it is the first activity you should look at.
Joff, I really like your perspective.
I agree
Jeff.
with Joff. I want to tweak it a little bit. when I think data classification, I come from the DoD world, and I'm thinking top secret, secret, confidential, and so on and so forth. I think what we're really saying is data identification. We need to identify what data is that's important to us and what kind of data that we have. Compliance comes into play, or regulatory issues come into play if we may not care about it, but because we have this certain type of data, somebody cares about it. So I think it starts with data identification, and to step it back a little bit further to understand
who should
data.
have access to that data,
Well,
Jeff?
wait,
Does that
wait,
play into it?
whoa.
Hold on, April.
Wait,
Let you finish.
let me finish.
Sorry.
So data identification comes out of just sort of understanding what your business is. If you understand what your business is, you understand what your data is, and then you determine what's valuable and what's not. And sort of the in-between step that we're not talking about between what Joff said and what we've been rumbling about is understanding the data flows. Where is the data in your organization, which determines then what
has
controls
access.
apply to
Right.
what systems and what people and all. And
But
so on
that
and
would
so
be
forth.
a normal part of a risk assessment. You identify, you classify, you understand the risk of that potential data. How do you want to protect it? That then leads to a set of security controls that you want to implement to then protect that data, right? Sometimes we start with we say, oh, we want to create a policy. And so we go out to ISO, or we go to NIST, or we go to these different sources.
It's backwards. It's backwards. Yeah.
And you say, oh, I need to implement all it. No, you don't.
No.
You need to understand that risk profile and then pick the controls
The mistake
that
is
help
top
manage
down
it.
versus bottom up.
But,
Yes.
to
That's the
qualify
mistake.
what you
Top
said
down
earlier,
versus
Matt,
bottom
it's
up.
not that we've forgotten the risk assessment. It's never been taught. There's many organizations out there that, this is all kind of new to them, and they've never been taught what a risk assessment is, because none of the big five or whoever consultancies that come in, or product vendors that offer the solutions, because they need to have all this, that, and the other, nobody ever sits down and says, you need to start with understanding what your business is, understand what your data is, understand where it's flowing, and what we're doing, in case you haven't heard, is this thing called a risk assessment, and we need to teach it and educate it, because it's not that it's forgotten.
So I can throw in one more opinion in there. The other thing that I think is a bit of an echo chamber here, and I think we're all sort of dancing around it, is if we properly identify and classify data, it is something that the business owners that are not technology aware, the C-suite folks, can get their head around. They understand what's critical to them, and they can definitely understand, a prioritization system that says this is majorly critical, this is not so critical, and then if you can draw some sort of map for them that says this majorly critical thing maps to these systems, which in turn maps to these security controls, guess what happens, folks? We get funded to do what we need to do. And that's why I think it should be the number one thing that we pay attention to, because ultimately we're going to be living off crumbs if we don't actually get the message across that we're all about protecting the critical asset to the business, which is the data itself.
It's that alignment of the business goals to a set of security controls for the CISOs, Jason,
100%.
to be able to drive metrics to say this is how we're helping meet our business goals at the end of the day.
To be able to drive value.
Right.
At the
So-
end of the
so
day,
the-
my
the only
CEO
oth-
wants to know how we're driving value.
The only
to
other
the
way to get
organization.
money is to wait until shit goes horribly wrong and use the I told you so budget method, which I
is-
guarantee everyone here has used at one point in time. But no,
reactive budgeting.
It's not the best way. I want to really re-amplify something you said, April, because people miss it when we talk about the value of data. And if we're going to use the cliche of CIA, people often think about what we have to protect, right? What's got to be confidential. But the things that we have to keep confidential, we understand. But if I ask you, what if you don't trust this piece of data? What if the integrity is not reliable? What about the pieces where availability matters, right? So what's this? How much do I care about the confidentiality of the photos of my product on my web catalog? I don't care. That's public. What do I care? What if the pictures are wrong and my product looks like shit and so I've lost integrity? oh, people stop buying from me, and I have to update my resume.
Jack, I agree so 100%. The question is not, it's a chicken and egg thing where we say why. Why is this data valuable? Is this data that we are offering for free to people so that they can use it? Is it weather data or something like that, or is it proprietary stuff? Is it
critical to my business
right?
and the operations of my business?
Is it user information? Is it GDPR covered? Things like that. Why? Answering the fundamental question of why is data? Why does it need to be secure? I was asked a question recently of why is security important? And it was one of the hardest questions I've ever had to answer. And I thought about it, and I went through it, and I ultimately came up with it's a matter of safety.
I'll flip that. It's a matter of trust.
Well, I flip that and say it's a matter of integrity. But I think
I'll flip that.
All three of us are right.
Just because I feel like flipping.
But I think all three of us are right.
But at the end of the day, trust is the foundation of everything that we need to be pushing to our customers. You trust us, you want to do business with us. Without that trust, there's no influence. Without that influence, we cannot do business with these customers.
How do you trust without integrity?
And what happens when there is no trust?
Oh, God. Somebody has to be the complete asshole and say, a bunch of us still use Facebook because it's the only way we can communicate with some of the people that are important to us. And I have no trust, no faith, no integrity,
Absolutely.
So you should be on Facebook like me.
They deliver value to me, and so I put up with the horrors of it.
But are you going to run your business on Facebook? No, you're going to market on Facebook.
If you're Cambridge Analytica,
girlfriend, maybe I don't need Facebook anymore. So
hold on, but
I need more Templeton Rye.
Oh, trust and integrity are things that are earned, right? And things that are crowdsourced from multiple folks. How many posts have you seen on Facebook? If you're InfoSec, friend InfoSec folks, right? Where
and others,
they're getting friend requests and reporting. We got a friend request from this person, but I have another already established friend request.
You're jumping the shark here.
All of these social media networks need like this flag that says, "I'm a public persona, and you have to be a real, you have to be obviously fraudulent and malicious for me to not accept your connection request because I'm who I am," as opposed to, there are a lot of people, they're friends and family who, if someone's connected, that means something.
Sure.
Let's put this out there in case you haven't guessed this. If I'm connected to somebody anywhere in the world, it means absolutely nothing.
Have you read the Bruce Schneier writings on? Well, hold on. It's about the problem.
I've stopped trying to do self-inflicted
it's about
lobotomies.
The problem with trusting trust. We can't trust in trust is the basic concept.
Trust.
Right?
This is a conversation. I don't know how many times this happened on this podcast. The challenge of doing technical trust. When we talk about trust as humans, trust, the transitive nature of trust is degrades quickly, and it is highly revocable. And let's look at how trust revocation works in PKI. Right? So once we try to automate trust, we're screwed. But human nature, it's like, that's my cousin. What does that mean? Not a thing is what that means. But so there are real challenges when we start talking about trust. But on the other hand, there's a lot of popularity about talking about zero trust. And
well, that's a different topic, though.
It is, but it isn't. It's using buzzwords for bullshit.
Buzzwords for buzzwords?
So in some cases, sure.
So I really back on topic.
Come on! Buzzkill. New here.
Mute him. We lost his connection.
Hold on. Assuming you have their trust, or you don't have their trust, but you're the only convenient game in town, ergo Facebook, and you are understanding what your most critical assets are, what do you do? Like, sincerely, like for you guys at the table and everyone else on the line, you have their trust or you haven't lost it yet, so maybe there's implicit trust, and you know what your critical assets are, or you think you know what your critical assets are.
That's the big one.
That's a huge thing, and let's not beat this. This is not a plug for what they're doing. I have no idea how good it is, but one of the most depressing things of 2018 for me, and I hope it works great because I love them, but the Grossmans and Arsnake, Jeremiah and Lana.
BitDiscovery.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Jeremiah and Lana and Arsnake and that team.
On. Jack, hold
it's
on.
2018, and we're trying to find our shit. Yeah. Where's my shit, and what is it? And it's 2018, and we have some of the smartest people in the industry working towards this, and they're not alone in this. There are all sorts of people through the
We've
millennia
been doing this
that
for
have been
20 years, and we still can't answer that question.
And it's how.
So
let's throw the challenge out. How many of us?
We're getting into a conversation about privacy. This is not a conversation.
On Enterprise Security Weekly yesterday, my favorite startup for 2018 was BitDiscovery by Jeremiah Grossman.
Well, I mean, it's Jeremiah and Lana and Arsnake, and how can that not?
But they're doing awesome.
It's them.
Yep.
It goes back to asset inventory, understanding where your data is, classifying it, understanding the risk associated with that, and then applying a set of controls to protect it.
And then
right?
focusing
that's the basic, that's the basics. That is that should be Security 101.
It should be. But most people don't do it in that order.
We need to add Security 101 to the wiki.
What Security 101 is whatever the latest headline was that could have saved it, which doesn't address the fact that if you're up against somebody who actually wants what you have,
they're going to get it anyways.
They're going to up their game. It's one of the things that, like the DBIR and other things has shown, is look, let's, not to be fatalistic, but let's at least let the people who assault us work a little harder.
Right.
It's like the zombie metaphor where you only have to be faster than the other guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are too many zombies now. I mean, there really are too many zombies. So I don't know. Carry cyanide pills, so when they get close, you can off yourself.
And I'm going to say, and you have to fight the framework.
What does that mean?
What it means is that, at least what I get all the time, is you try to go down these roads where you say, I want to classify data, I want to identify, I want to see what I've got going on. And instead, people really get bogged down because somebody says, here's the framework. And they start at the top of it, and they pick item 1, framework 1. And they start down that framework, and they say, oh, we ran out of money about item 3. And then we just have to sort of let it go after that. And you have to fight the framework. Yeah, I mean, I'm not disparaging the frameworks themselves. It's just the idea that you have to fight it, because we see that all the time. I saw it the other day, and somebody was just coming at me with this. Why aren't we starting here? And I was trying to say, we need to get down to the bottom. We need to understand what we have. We understand what's at risk and how we protect those things. And instead, it's right back up. Well, let's go back up here to this idea, this concept idea. And I'm like, that isn't going to save you. From
because that's the easy way out.
Right? No, it is.
That's the easy way out.
It's
that's
a checkbox. But that's what I mean. Fight the framework.
Can we add pragmatism to the list of security basics?
We should all run OS2 virtualized or containerized, and we're there.
It's funny you say pragmatism, because I was going to ask if anybody here has taken pragmatic marketing before, ever.
Oh, good.
I have.
God,
because there's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason I'm saying this.
The closest I've ever come to wanting to slam a door and take us all out. I wanted to show up the second day.
That was Steve Hall's session, right?
Yes. I wanted to show up the second day, barricade the door, and
that's fine. But
that's why we drink
the world a better
There's
place.
a reason I'm saying this.
Oh my God!
Right? Because I was part of an engineering group, and we did this to learn how to not build things from inside out, but from outside in, to build something for the customer, not what we thought was cool, because we're technology people, right? This goes back. You're saying you don't build to meet the framework. You're going to identify the who, what, where, when, and why, and build to that instead. Yeah, I'm not a marketing guy.
Marketecture. I've got some shit. Let's
Who let
find
the engineering
people to buy
guy
it.
into the room?
Yeah, and you're right. But you're right, Brent, in that the fact is, what we really should think about is, what are our problems? Where do we want to solve components? And then drive solutions towards that. We sometimes take that part out of the equation. We do it a lot in our industry.
We just develop a solution.
Yeah. And so we
Paul,
build a solution because we're like, oh, look, solution.
There are no
but
solutions.
What's the problem that solution's going to solve, right?
Yep.
And if there isn't a problem-solution value chain, it doesn't matter. And we all have to do that.
No, we just have
internally.
to tell the customers.
So at the end of
that
the
they
day,
have the
at the end of the day, we talk a lot, at least within my group, about bad busy. And bad busy is solving the problems that don't exist or that we created or that nobody really cares about because our organization doesn't need that solution. It's about aligning with the business problems that my company has.
Exactly.
But
Right?
that's the problem
This
with
is-
compliance is that you end up with those things where you have to care about them even though they're not
Sure,
necessarily
absolutely,
relevant.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this on Business Security Weekly, right? Where we'll have our customers send us these questionnaires and these assessments and these audits.
Oh, yeah.
And we look at them and they're like 3,000 questions and we go, 1,000 of these aren't even relevant.
Yeah.
So what do? Pick up the phone and have the right conversation.
Yeah.
What are you trying to achieve? What's the outcome that you want? Oh, you don't process, store, or transmit any of our data? Pfft, blow away the first 3 tabs of that entire spreadsheet because they don't even matter.
Right. So that's why risk assessment is important. So back in 2003, I ran the third-party risk assessment for one of the large national banks. And the process we put in place was we did a risk assessment, back to my risk assessment discussion. Based on the risk, then we applied a set of controls based on the questions to the risk assessment. Then we could say, look, okay, I got a questionnaire. Back then it was only 250 before BITS got involved and it became like 1,200. And we said, okay, well, if you meet these criteria, I need you to answer this set. If you meet these, we answer these sets, right? The risk assessment drives the controls. And the controls then you can assess appropriately based on risk what you want in store.
And you can have not completely formal risk assessment too. You can say I'm evaluating the risk of this versus this. That's another
True,
thing.
you can, but we wanted to try to formulate a little bit so we could automate it, right? Because if we
That's
think
advanced. I mean, that's super advanced.
I mean, if you think about
Automating risk
70,000 vendors, and you think about profiling, like, well, should I assess the gardener? No, he doesn't have data.
Exactly.
Done. Low risk.
But he has
But that also
access
means you need to
to the
classify.
roof
He
or
might.
the elevator
At
or
least outside,
something.
maybe not inside. But you've got to go through those different risk components and say, does this apply? Do these controls apply? And if they apply, then I should have asked those questions from a control perspective. But if they don't, I shouldn't ask those. Because
But that's when you profile, you have to profile your third-party vendors. Because I need to know that, wait a minute, this is a contractor that literally runs wire for me, or this is a contractor that actually holds my customer data.
Yes.
Right.
They need an assessment that's way more comprehensive
all
than the
get
guy
the
that's running wire for me,
600-page
right?
and
questionnaire.
it has nothing to do with revenue and how much you're spending and all that other stuff.
Right.
It's what they have access to.
Absolutely.
Can I add that a security basic should be that we are able to educate our co-workers, our management, our third
Executives, our
executives.
CEO,
So
I think
our
I think the ability
Jesus.
to
All right.
educate
Get
is
to the user.
The humans.
To the
I don't know if
humans.
it's a core value. I don't know if it's a basic, but the ability at
So-
once
Hold on.
to
Wait,
educate.
Lee.
So what I've been wanting to say is that we've been leaving the end user, not just management, out of the equation because they represent a completely different risk, particularly the insider.
Oh, screw those guys. They're just trying to do their jobs.
You know, like it'd be a lot easier for us if we didn't have users. I know this.
It'd be
It'd be easier if we just eliminated the human out of the equation altogether. Just everything's a machine.
This
We're
job
good.
would be great if it weren't for the
Activate.
Where's a Whopper when you need one?
Yeah, well,
I
if you've
fight
read
for the-
today's
I fight
headlines,
for
you
the
know we're
users,
getting
right?
close.
Yeah. And that's how you get Skynet.
It is.
You want a singularity? This is how you get a singularity.
There are things that we overthink. So I'm going to use so here I have a wallet that's dumb. This wallet is stupid because it's metal and my cards go like magically thing and nobody can like bump my cards and read them. Is that really a threat to me? I don't know, but this was so cheap. And also, it's cool. It's distressed leather and shit. I solved the problem. Whether or not I had the problem, it was painless to solve this problem and cheap.
You didn't solve the problem. You just decreased the distance at which the
Fair.
problem
Fair, right.
was a
So
problem.
this might or might not have been a problem. I could have done a risk analysis. Same thing from the the shield on my passport. Right, same thing.
He's
on the
helping to solve the problem.
Which is a big
it's
problem.
like
He's got a good grip.
I don't know if it's a real how much of a threat for a couple of bucks, this is beyond.
That's a great preventive control.
It's a preventive control, which
you know what
is so cheap,
right?
Relatively speaking. All right, now, if this had been a $1,000 wallet, it would have required thought.
But you know what, Jack?
And if it hadn't been freaking cool, watch this. Look at that. Look at that. That's
You know
cool.
what?
Yeah.
No, but
if
what's
I-
interesting,
at the end of the day, though-
but hold on. On Business Security Weekly, we talk about finding problems, creating solutions to solve them. I love Shark Tank. I'm a huge Shark Tank fan. And I look at the bottle breacher, right? That is the 50 caliber bullet that is
What is
a
that?
bottle opener.
Yep.
It allows you to open your beer. I don't really have a problem opening
Opening my
beers. If I get a beer, I'm going to find a way to open it. But, however, as Jack is saying, the cool factor to open my beer with a bottle breacher is worth me going to spend that money. What I think is interesting as we talk about security basics, I think a lot of us spend money on the cool factor, not necessarily matching that
But
problem.
here's the question,
yeah,
though.
check
Here's
my
the
Amazon
question, though.
Prime
The
account.
cool
I'll tell you
factor.
that right now.
If I need to take that cool factor and spend $15 per unit times 3,000 employees, is it worth the investment?
Right.
Depends on the data. Depends on the
Is it worth the investment?
Fundamental.
I will say
That's
no
so-
on that.
It depends.
Your risk
That's
profile
right.
and the
Exactly.
goals you want to
100%.
implement.
100%.
But that's
100%.
So back
I'm
to
with
the
you.
same
It depends on the
discussion.
risk.
So people that don't travel internationally and have cards popped regularly,
Yeah.
it would be
Right.
dumb. But let's roll right back. Is antivirus good or bad? I don't know. Are you getting value or how much are you paying? If you're
Exactly.
I'm not. Let's just throw numbers. If you're not a tiny company and you're paying more than $1 or $2 for antivirus, you're wasting money.
Agreed.
If you're, I'm sorry, EDR. It's
No,
it's
antivirus and then next generation
And then
AV,
next
which
next
is
gen. Next.
you could just right.
The issue I have with the wallet analogy is that's a tangible object, and when you look at that wallet that's cheap and you say, "Oh, I understand how this
Well,
works."
this wasn't
With-
that cheap. Let's
with
be
security
real. I
products-
mean, look.
It doesn't have
look
a,
at
it doesn't have a 12.
this is a
shotgun.
hand tailored vest I'm wearing. You know,
Clearly.
with a security
Yeah,
product,
'cause-
you often
Obviously.
you often don't get information on how, with a security product. You often don't get information on how it works at all. It's like a mystical
yeah.
thing.
No,
Yeah.
You know?
you get information. It's just not.
Okay, fair
If you have
enough.
an
Right.
APT, I have a solution for you. There's a bunch of them in the market, right?
So-
I love. I'm gonna just keep doing this to remind people of what most of these solutions are.
So I'm gonna suggest that we might just be conceivably moving beyond
PCI
basics.
Wait,
I will-
QSA.
I'll
QSA,
get to that eventually.
QSA.
I actually do want to do the flip.
QSA.
Shots, everybody.
All right, we're going to talk PCI.
No.
Let me say one thing, and then I'll go PCI. To flip what April
my
said
God,
a
you
while
said it
ago when
twice.
she was flipping, her most difficult question was, what was the...
Why
security?
does security matter?
My question
It doesn't.
is...
It does.
Which
It does not.
I think it's
Liar.
appropriate to ask this
Doesn't.
question since we're
Safety.
talking about
Human
security basics. What is...
Humans are expendable.
Wait for it. What is
Too many of us.
security? We're talking about the basics of security, but we haven't actually defined what security is in the context of this conversation.
I think we did. I think we said confidentiality, integrity, availability. I mean, I think that
She's
as
the
much
FIPS
as
100.
You
As
have
much as
one.
we
You
hate
have
to-
one perception, but that's not
Okay.
necessarily what Larry
you're a
thought
FIPS
when we're
100
talking
FIPS
about
200
no,
girl.
no,
in
no,
terms
no.
of security.
I have many ISC squared certifications. I am a certification person, but I also find that I utilize those concepts every single day.
Yeah.
When you have to do a risk assessment, you use those concepts. So you can't possibly argue with me that CIA is not.
No, I agree with you
thing that is
100%.
Wait,
But
something
the
that you
140 relies on
Well,
a FIPS
it's
100
absolutely-
to a FIPS
Forget
200,
FIPS. Forget
right?
FIPS.
But if you want to
Isn't
use,
th-
if
does
you
it
wanna
matter if
use an
somebody else
analogy,
sees it?
It is a good analogy. I think it's a really good one to think about. A risk assessment 840 relies on a FIPS 200 classification of CIA to drive a set of controls that you now need to implement and measure in your organization.
And this is why it's good to
Damn
have
it.
a
Now I have to
framework,
pee.
but you don't have to take.
God damn it.
You don't have to take a framework.
How is that new?
You don't
broke
have to.
the seal.
Oh,
It's over.
man.
A framework is only as
I'm
good.
hosting now.
Officially,
old.
officially
All right,
the Templeton Rye is now gone.
So,
Congratulations.
all right, so I have a question, a complete
wait, wait,
fucking
wait, hold on,
tangent
hold on,
because
hold
it's
on.
me.
I'm
Go-
still talking about framework. So a
Yeah.
framework relates very much to risk assessment because the RMF is
Yep.
a framework.
Yep.
And you're talking a lot about like an RMF type of scenario where you categorize and then you add controls and these kind of that kind of step. And I completely agree with everything you've both said. The framework exists to give people who have no idea what they're doing
Some
the
direction.
basics.
Some direction.
A baseline.
Some
The
direction.
Starting point.
There you go.
But
Do
align
you
it to
have
your business, though,
authentication?
because not everything is going to align with your business.
So-
you need to do the hard
There
work.
needs to be education and there needs to be
And
content.
it's
Clearly.
really
The
dangerous
problem
to
with
let people who
most-
don't know what they're
Education,
doing
yeah.
The
do
problem
anything.
with frameworks, the
100%.
problem with most compliance regimes, PCI excluded, hold that thought, is no, seriously, most of the compliance that comes out, a lot of it from the government, they're giving you every possible control that you could have possibly think of and do for every scenario.
Right. At least-
And
at least
they
as a
throw it
concept.
at you and they say, this is your best practice, this is what you should do to secure
Sure.
everything.
Sure.
And nobody sits there and tells an organization what matters and what doesn't, which is where a risk assessment comes in.
That's exactly right.
Where
although
PCI differs is PCI says you have a particular type of data in your environment and you need to protect it. So it's all
more targeted.
It's
Yep.
all it's targeted. It's all it's there's this and I was a QSA for 10 years and I had too many customers.
So
recovering. And ironically, I'm not qualified to be a QSA anymore, but that's another topic. But
You were back
I
then.
had too many customers that if I'd sit down and try to talk to them about the basics and what are we trying to do here, what are the goals of security, they'd be like, duh.
And Jeff, I deal this with one of our customers many years ago, in that they had a vulnerability assessment done, and the vulnerability assessment results went to the board, and the board said, "Great, fix everything."
Oh, great.
Because
the report that's about that high.
There were
No, it
450,000
wasn't that tall because
findings.
it wasn't that tall because it said for home use only on it.
Yeah. Chad, how did you know? But no, there were 450,000 findings,
Right.
and my job was to come in and tell them which ones they could risk accept because it didn't have any.
Right.
Yeah,
It doesn't
some
have
of
any
them weren't
bearing.
applicable.
It doesn't
Right,
apply.
right.
And that's the problem with most compliance regimes is there's nobody there helping them to connect the dots
They're-
and say this matters and this doesn't
that's
for
the
you.
key.
And that's what I mean by fight the framework. I mean,
Absolutely,
that's exactly
100%.
what I meant by that is that you've got to be careful that you don't just throw it out there and say, let's do it all and let's
Right,
make
you
it
can't
work.
do it all. Look,
There's
at
no
the-
way. It's impossible.
at the
It's
end of the day,
absolutely
you
impossible.
can't do it all. You have to break this stuff down into subsets.
Can I?
If
or
I were to implement
devil's
every
advocate?
control,
But hold on, basics implies you're not doing it all. No?
No.
Well, hold on.
No.
Can I imply?
Does it?
Let me do devil's advocate here, and maybe I don't know.
like
I
how
might
you-
agree with
you were
this.
doing
Yeah,
the-
She's
I
got
may
the horns
agree.
on her head
I
like the
may-
devil.
Devil.
Look out.
Merry Christmas. I may agree with what everybody's
Clearly
saying, but
she's
I
hunting.
may also be playing devil's advocate.
where's Al
But-
Pacino when we need him?
But the wisdom to understand that beyond compliance,
Agreed.
it may not be basic, which is
Yeah.
kind of what we're talking about. And we're saying that, like, yes, real security matters, but that's not a basic. The basic is the thing that it's place burger here. It's that kind of guidance.
But for me, basic is being able to say to the CEO of our company, we have NIST 853 that we follow. There's 2,000 controls. Here are the ones that apply to us, and here are the ones that do not.
And it
Here
may
are the ones
not
that
be
do not
true,
apply to
and
us.
it may be the documentation may be shady, and there may be things
Well,
that
I
are
saw Balvenie
half-assed,
hit the table.
added. But
Don't mix
Gotta
it with
have
that.
some-
No.
Hold on. Time
Whoa,
out.
wait a
Time
minute.
out. Hold
There's
on. Time out.
scotch.
Time out. Time out. Everyone gets scotch. Lee, Neely, you have the floor, my friend.
Thank you very much.
We're going to fill our glasses. You guys talk remotely.
Talk remote. Talk amongst yourselves.
Alrighty, so my thing, I was trying to figure out if this was a basics or more advanced, and that was, it kind of goes back to Jack's point about the wallet.
Did you get some?
Picking the wallet was easy, it was frictionless. controls and things that have to follow that are frictionless, users will actually do them. When you get complicated, you throw 853 in all its glory into somebody's life, their head will explode.
Oh, absolutely.
At least mine does. So I'm trying to figure out how you gel it down to what can actually be done. A smaller number of controls actually executed well.
Yes,
better than
Lee's
lot
point
that
is
are
great.
bad.
It has to be consumable by the
has to
user.
be.
So hold on, someone else remote has a question, comment.
I was going to say that's exactly why people don't leave Facebook, because it's too hard to
convenient.
find the alternatives that can give them the same level of connection to their family.
And Keith,
There you
as
go.
we've
They don't
talked
leave.
about WordPress, same boat.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well,
Same
you know,
thing.
once you get a steady boyfriend or girlfriend, it's okay to leave Facebook.
Unless you have a family that wants to see your kids.
Or if you're just an
Oh,
introvert and you
God.
don't communicate to your
Family.
family, you don't need to get on Facebook.
But
at
know
all.
what the tool is, know how you're using it, and know what you should be putting out there.
Right.
In the tool.
Yep.
That's it.
Shouldn't we
know how to
apply-
leverage the tool
No,
appropriately
yeah,
at the end of the day?
Yeah, exactly. Know where you're putting your tool.
That's it.
Know
where you're putting your tool in every aspect of life.
Can we argue
We just
that
made it
Mashed
better.
potatoes.
Can we argue what the A in CIA stands for? This is
Asshole.
something that's come up
Asshole.
recently.
availability?
Availability.
Accountability, availability.
Availability.
Okay.
Availability.
Traditionally availability.
Traditionally, and so like there are a whole bunch of people who don't think it's availability.
What do they think?
What do they
think
think
it is,
Jack?
Ass coverage?
No, it's like
Attribution.
authentication,
No.
authenticity. It's like
That's
there-
AAA. That's a
there
whole
are-
separate
there
thing.
are all
Yeah.
sorts
AAA.
of
AAA
things.
is identity, baby. I'm
Yep.
just saying.
Well, again,
100%.
it's not
On
that
the
they've
nose.
forgotten; they've never been taught.
They've never been
never
taught.
been
Yeah.
taught.
That's the key.
And
Formal
the whole
security
thing
training is a lot different
that
than-
CIA is a bullshit thing that somebody came up with 10 minutes before giving a talk in the 70s, as I recall hearing from Spaff. And that I think that may go back to the basics. Is we're just making this shit up as we go along, and if you don't know where you work and what the people do and what's important in your company or your organization or your industry, you're screwed. Now, it can go that too far because folks that have listened for years have heard this before, but like I spent most of my career in the auto industry, and you should always know your industry. Well, I got out of it 12 years ago because I knew the industry so well. I saw the American auto industry going into the toilet, crashing and burning, and people said I was wrong. And
So
I've
you
been,
left
I've been a
with
vendor.
you left
I've been-
with gung ho.
I've been a vendor pimp for over a decade, and it's way better than being in the car business. So, you know, it may not. I didn't help secure the car business for the past 12 years because the auto industry, by the way, has a really bad reputation of being a bunch of sleazy criminal bastards, and their reputation is better than they
so
deserve.
Jack, I think you nailed it. Security basics is number one, know your business.
Know your business.
Know your business.
And
you
I-
have
Hold-
to.
What
you have
matters?
to
One thing to add as
align.
well.
You nailed
Look,
it.
I
One
think
thing to
that,
add-
to your point, Jason, the big thing you have to understand is where does security sit in the context of your business? Your
100%.
business. Not somebody else's business, your business.
That's right.
And you have to understand goals and understand how
Outcomes.
you can
Outcomes.
Right, and how you can help those outcomes. So most people know I spent a long time in GRC, governance, risk management, compliance. I built one of the first solutions in that space. What you have to truly understand is how do these activities align to business goals and outcomes? How do you harness risk, take risk to grow business, to
Agreed
drive
100%.
outcomes? And if you can't do that as a security professional, you're screwed. I'm just telling you, your career is over as a CISO.
Hold on,
Agreed.
Keith.
100% agreed.
Keith, hold the.
So, two things to add. Knowing your business and staying in business today, by the way, I think is driving more towards something that will both is becoming or should be the basics in security today, which is actually DevOps. If you can patch faster, if you can actually deliver software faster, if you can continue to drive your company toward a digital transformation, you'll stay in business longer than those that don't.
So Keith, I don't.
By the way,
Keith,
but one more thing.
hold
Lessons
on.
from the car industry.
This
Those that were able to produce cars faster survived.
built shit boxes. Built shit boxes.
And also, it doesn't mean
Vega,
it's a
Chevy Vega.
wrong idea just because you came up with it on the fly and wrote it down on a bar napkin. It could still be a right idea.
I know.
Just
I've done
because you
it.
came up with
But
it
you
with CIA
market share, right?
on a bar
Market
napkin.
share back to
But
Facebook.
again,
Market
back
share.
To, back to Keith's point. Keith's point, right? Which is
Keith Point. I've been there. It's beautiful. The vistas are
Keith
wonderful.
Point. It's a great summer it's out there. It's out there by
The Blue Ridge
Narragansett.
Mountains,
It's out there by
but
Gansett.
he's right in that understanding the business, applying the right controls, allowing the business to grow. See, I think one of the challenges in our space is security has always been traditionally the place of no. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that.
Only
that doesn't
from
work anymore.
only from a GRC
no.
perspective.
So I look at businesses in three fashions. You're in a run, a grow, or a transform, right? Traditionally, security's been in that run. We're a cost center. You're an inhibitor. You're a roadblock. The way we need to transform security is to get into that growth and transformation phase to say we're aligning to the business.
Yes.
We're helping our business transform.
Is
We
this where I
have to.
talk about the industry being focused on growth alone?
No.
Mike,
You have to balance.
You have to balance
The
it.
security.
You have
No.
to balance
the business with the way
security.
you
No,
implement
that's not the way
security.
the world works, though. The world works with what Wall Street wants.
Growth.
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 And look, I mean,
yes.
I order Viagra from Canada. I understand this value proposition, but
Because it's cheaper.
Wow, and we joked so
I thought
many
it was
years
Asia.
of that.
What, Canada? Come
but
on,
well,
hold
see,
on.
you
No,
order from
Canada gets it from
You
Asia.
order from Canada, and it comes from Southeast Asia.
And those pills work the best.
The stuff that comes from islands you've never heard of, that's good. But, I mean, that stuff is good.
Is that just for Viagra or other drugs as well?
He only knows about
No
Cialis.
comment.
This is security fan
no.
He only knows the little blue pill.
Let's find out in about 4 hours.
I doubt that.
And Jack, how deep does the rabbit hole
Holy
go?
go. Well, I'm
Don't ask that question.
Depends on whether you got Canadian Viagra or not.
Depends on the pill.
Well, I'm a small part
It's an
Irish.
Arctic
At
bunny.
this point, I'm not qualified to be in this conversation anymore.
I'm a small part Irish. Would like to see.
Dear God. So something that
Oh,
we're
I know, Jack. I know.
It's okay.
to try to
There goes my
summarize
security
what we're
clearance.
talking
Wait,
about.
back
Well-
to APT. Persistence.
If it lasts more than 4 hours, Jack.
To summarize a lot of what we're saying.
Hey, I saw that commercial, and I was talking to my wife years ago, and she said, and I said, fuck that, I'm taking 2 of them, so it lasts 8 hours. And she looked at me and said, oh, honey, that's an ad for Viagra, not Tylenol PM.
And here's Jack's stand-up.
Jack,
To summarize,
point. Jeff, summarize.
He's here all
Where's
week.
the drum roll when we need one?
we talked about security having something to do with data, and we talked about the CIA, but what we're really talking about
Or the
is what goes
ICA. Whatever.
CIA.
The CIA.
But we're talking about other things that don't really fit neatly into that category from an organization, from a company perspective that's in business to earn revenue, make money, is that there's things that matter to the business that are beyond actual data and the availability or integrity or confidentiality of data. Like I used to talk to customers, what are you worried about? Well, we don't want to be the next company that's listed on the Wall Street Journal, which for you younger viewers was a newspaper that was printed on paper and distributed to organizations and private
I
citizens.
think I've seen them online.
In these, to use a more modern analogy, it would be they don't want to be the company that's named in the next Krebs article of being a major breach. So it's a public perception, it's a public image type of thing, which it's indirectly related to data and data loss and breaches, but
It's the brand hit.
It's beyond.
The brand
It's
hit.
beyond simply the data protection. It's core to the business. It's their value. And to go back to the risk assessment, I believe to simplify, most companies in terms of a risk assessment, you have to determine what's at risk, and it's really one of two things: their ability to earn revenue, and the risk of their ability to earn revenue, or the risk of what are the costs associated with running the business.
Client loyalty is another one. Client loyalty is another one because if your brand takes a hit, you're going to start seeing clients drop off.
I would see,
But that's a subset of revenue.
Employee
ultimately.
loyalty. Employee loyalty is almost equally as important as customer loyalty.
to keep the talent.
After a breach, I think the number one thing that is downplayed is why do my employees still want to work here?
Mass exodus
after a breach.
Yep.
Not only
That's
why
huge.
do our employees want to work here, but why do our customers want to come back to the website
Yeah.
when we
Well,
talk about
the-
Facebook and Google and these other sites?
With the exception of Facebook over the past few years, the reason you should stay is especially if you have an employee stock purchase program, because it tanks quickly and then recovers solidly. If you invested in TJX after the breach, you would have made money until the last couple of months.
Historically,
it's historically
companies,
with the exception, and we don't know the long run on Facebook, but if TJX, Target, everybody, boom.
True, because
until the past 6 weeks.
customers assume that once you've been breached, you're going to improve your security based on the breach. You're going to fix the
lightning doesn't strike twice.
like the Office, you're going to fix the glitch.
I
right?
wish that were the case.
So
I wish it were the case,
It's
but
not
it's not the
case.
case.
It's not
but
always.
consumers
You and I know
Target,
of one.
They believe it
and we
is.
can't say we
Who it
shouldn't
is,
say,
but we know.
There's one we know of who did learn the lesson, and for their space, they went from let's say not so good to within their space. Holy crap, you guys are good.
Sorry.
I wish that happened more. Thank you.
Sorry.
I wish that happened more often. But yeah, it's you know, I mean,
this is turning into.
It was almost like that company had a bullseye on them, and they learned their lesson. And
You mean
man, they're
Target?
good now.
I'm telling you, this turns
I'm not going
into.
to say anything, but there are some companies that learn lessons and they turn into just amazing.
It turns
security
and here's what I have to say.
organizations.
Here's my worry, right? Can a company like mine survive something like a Target breach? I don't know. The big dogs can. But can a company like mine, a $500 million company,
turns
survive
into
it? I don't
it's
know. I
psych
don't think so.
marketing.
But the bigger,
I don't think so.
so
And this is the
all
majority
this
of
is psych
the
marketing.
industries we're talking to are not the Targets and not the Equifax.
Look at like Union Carbide. Union Carbide, a lot of people died. I mean, skip security for this for a second. And in Union Carbide, a lot of people died because of a horrible mistake that was made. Psych marketing saves the day. It has nothing to do with did they correct it. Would they do it again? They went in, the actuarials said, what's the likelihood this is going to happen again? How much money should we spend to prevent it happening again? And how much money should we spend spinning the hell out of it so that it doesn't matter? And I see that all the time now. Now when a company sees a breach, they immediately, it's not about how do we fix the security, it's how do we psych market it to keep it away from the general public and fix it that way.
And
transfer risk.
Yeah,
they're transferring risk.
Not
They're
only
transferring risk
how
to
do
the
we?
No, they're not transferring.
We're not.
risk.
We
They're
want to
trying
prevent the same issue, not a different issue. That's also a problem.
That's a challenge. But you know, let's be honest about them. If you're an American company and don't kill Americans, it's okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, let's be really blunt.
I don't know if we've reached this point yet, but with people that I know, they become so saturated with breaches that they just don't even...
Breach fatigue
They don't even care anymore. Oh, I got breached again. I don't care. I'm going to shop there tomorrow. It doesn't matter.
2 years ago in InfoSec, we reached the Wile E. Coyote point. Remember that one episode where he catches the Roadrunner and can't do anything about it? That was us 2 years ago, and now we're back to trying to be relevant.
Yeah, you're going to have to get away from those cartoons.
I'm not trying to be relevant. I'm just trying to be funny. At this point in time, really,
You're
you're
elegant
on the side, just so everybody knows.
You're not. You may not be irrelevant, but you're elegant.
It's a thing. It's hard to get the top hat on right with this headset thing.
Vintage elegance. So hold on. Where do we stand with what are security basics? We've talked high level.
What is security?
Does that mean patching, configuration management, credential, and identity management are my top three?
No.
Agree, disagree? After you discover your data, hold on. After you discover your data.
After you've done the basics. What are the basics?
Well, basics
that Paul cares about.
Hold on. Step 0 of the basics is
figure out
understand what you
For
have.
those younger people in C programming, counting starts with the 0.
Your data, the classification, who has access.
Doug,
you missed one.
I need somebody else on my side
to
for
patch
this.
management.
No,
to
then I went
configuration
patch management, configuration management, and credential and identity management.
Why don't we just go back to 1967?
Cyber exposure?
And listen
Oh, he just did that.
It's the sounds of me.
I love
on
you.
not
Drop the
being-
mic.
Yeah, boom.
Wow.
Let's go back to 1967 and what Willis Ware told us.
No
in the
one
Ware
was
report.
alive except all of you over there in 1967.
So we're having a moment, okay?
They're like,
And
oh,
Willis
yeah,
Ware
you
told
old
us things that mattered, right? Things that were like, hey, if it's too hard to use the product, people are gonna subvert security.
100%. Yeah.
Yep. Oh God, yeah.
We're still
And
there.
if we don't think about security at the beginning, we're doomed.
Yep.
And then a couple of years later, we get into
We won like World War II.
a couple of years
in
later.
that
Don't get me there.
We get into the Risos report and Bob Abbott's report where he said things like, hey, identification, authentication, and authorization are fundamental to doing this well.
Grace Hopper invented computing.
Now, back to Keith's
know
point,
it.
right?
Alan
Keith's
Turing.
point. So, Keith, there are points that I love because I'm a big
Yeah,
believer.
I
that digital
Especially,
I've seen
especially
you.
points
Yeah.
that
I've
have
seen
tips.
you in Vegas
Yep.
and the
So-
points you love.
But yes, they're usually on my wife, by the way. However,
Well played, well played. I guess.
well, she was watching live.
Yeah, I
She's
was
not
just
watching.
gonna
She's
say-
like, you guys bore me. She's like gone now. She was watching live. She's like, take that thing off of your
You
face.
should watch tonight.
But if we think about
don't call Paul a thing.
But if we think about digital transformation and where the market's going,
Am I thing one or
Right?
thing two?
to Keith's point, application, data, identity, and user, those are the things that are just core basic things that we have to protect. As the network gets abstracted, the host gets abstracted. We can do all this stuff at the network layer and the host layer, and eventually it's going to go bye-bye.
The mini.
Right? And so what's left?
deal maker.
App user data.
deal
App
breaker.
user data, right? And so I'm a big believer that app user data is some of those key areas that we just have to
leave my
continue to
kids in the
focus
car.
on to continue to transform through this whole evolution of
minivan.
technology and where our technologies are going.
The reason we have frameworks is because of the absence of
knowledge.
pragmatism and knowledge. The reason that we have compliance is to prove that pragmatism has hopefully been achieved.
One of the things that sparked this segment was what drives security? Is it what percentage? Compliance, standards, guidelines, or best practices?
It's all the
In that
variables
order.
combined.
In that order.
It's all of those
Literally in
variables
that order.
combined to meet the needs of your business.
Right.
So
In that order.
Meshed
my
into this
business and your
very-
business are completely different when
Right.
you talk about
But
that.
it
meshed
depends
in-
on the business.
But
It does.
meshed in based on the business, the risk, and how you want to drive the business.
It's the high watermark of all of those things. So if
At
you have
the-
a standard here and you have a policy here and you have a
Well, hold on,
regulation here,
April, I wanna-
the high watermark is what wins.
I want to transition into when we talk to organizations and we talk about security policies and security procedures, something I learned very early on in my career in a classroom setting. And I thought about, and I was like, wow, okay, I get it. Policies, procedures, standards, business risk,
Guidelines.
compliance. I got it all.
Those all support each other.
But hold on, so many organizations get that wrong. Larry?
Oh my God.
You've experienced this lately where
all the damn time.
those
So-
fundamentals are just missing.
So if you talk about, what is a basic, like if you want to start doing all of that, we need to understand what our data is all about. Like your organization is going to need a policy that states that we need to understand what our data is about.
Yep.
And how many times do organizations not understand what the difference between a policy,
missing,
a procedure, a standard, and a
guideline?
guideline?
Well,
Absolutely.
frankly,
A charter.
companies too often say if you go in and try to teach them and educate them on this process that involves policy, standards, and procedures, they say, that sounds really complicated and hard. Just tell me what I need to buy.
Right.
Right, and it's not possible.
You hit an incredible point right there. So we live in.
I am a curmudgeon after
You
all.
are, absolutely. And I've known you for what, maybe 2 hours? And
2 hours.
I totally got that.
You
But
Same.
by the way,
you
that
should-
whiskey was great.
You should pay more attention.
But listen, you hit a great point, right?
But the Belvini's better.
What we do is very complicated. We live in an instant gratification society, right? And
Yes.
I preach all the time. The reason why most people fail instead of succeed is they trade what they want most for what they want at the moment. And we're living in the moment so much, we're not looking toward the biggest outcome that we need, right? So all of these standards and policies and frameworks, we need to do the hard work and align them to our business.
And if you think about the way
back to risk management,
exactly.
it is risk management 101.
We're talking basics. And I want to throw out one thing that every organization can do to make security better instantly. It's easy.
Kill all their users.
No.
Unplug the cables.
You find the manager you want to fire anyway. You find them in violation of a security policy, and you walk them out the door, not because they didn't hit quota. The public message is, you did something in violation of our security policy, and therefore we've walked you out the door, even though it's a lie and it's just cover. You show people that getting this shit wrong has consequences.
I don't disagree.
Accountability.
But
at the end of the day,
you need a scapegoat. Look, I'm not trying to be idealistic. I'm being really curmudgeonly.
Jack, after you're done, I want to get into the weeds.
Walk somebody out the door. It can be utter bullshit, but say, he was surfing porn in front of customers, and we fired him. It's like, no, he didn't make his number for three quarters in a row.
Hold on.
But
that's not a security violation. That's an HR violation.
But it's all wound together, because when you go surfing porn,
Unless you work for a porn company.
Okay.
Malware,
just because we police it doesn't mean it's a security violation.
Anytime it's security, we are going to be holding people up to a model of negative or positive. We're going to say, you did this right or you did this wrong.
Right.
And it's going to be us versus them, or we're all one team. And what you're saying is that it's us versus them. We walk people out and we show them the negative. We also have to show them the positive. We have to show them.
You started this long ago about talking about user training, and one of the things. So Marcus Ranum said many years ago. We've had this conversation.
Decades.
If user awareness training, if security training were going to work, it would have worked by now, and therefore it's useless. But the reality for those of us that have been in the trenches is, if one person says, "Hey, I think I clicked something I probably shouldn't have," that puts you sometimes months ahead of the game. It's not trying to solve a problem. It's trying to reduce your pain. This whole thing is reduce your pain.
But to April's point, I will say that I've had, personally, more success in the value-add training and teaching the humans what the right way is, guiding them the right way, versus the fear, uncertainty, and doubt aspect, right?
We use FUD a lot in our industry.
And I'm going to tell you right now that that's a counterintuitive way to attack it, right? Because I look at it from a shared responsibility, right? I have a shared responsibility within my organization that every single person that works for this organization is a security person. Everybody. To some level, to some point, whether you're a finance executive assistant, or you are literally the global admin of my Active Directory. We all have a role to play in security. And it's at the end of the day, I want to achieve the positive impact versus the fear. Because the fear has everybody making rash decisions versus logical decisions.
Hold on. Be careful, Jason, because I think some people misconstrue that as security should be in the hands of the user and put too much responsibility. But you can't put too much responsibility. They shouldn't have
unless you give them authority.
They're the first
you can't.
They are.
They are.
The end user, in my experience,
but humans are lazy and they're going to click on the link.
Yeah, that's a fallacy of distributed computing.
But you
keep mollycoddling those users, you're going to end up speaking Canadian, hippie. And but that was the fallacy of distributed computing
our Canadian
in the first place.
Listeners, I just want to say we love you.
No, I'm not saying let them manage it.
Congratulations on your feedback.
I'm not saying allow them to manage it. I'm saying allow us to dictate down to the user base what best practice is, and then it's a shared responsibility between all of us.
We do not dictate.
Hold on. Keith,
and Jason.
Just don't say DevOps.
DevOps. Container.
Give them
DevSecOps.
way to do it, but then also the other thing is
DevSecOps.
give it in a way that it is applicable to their home use, right? If you're going to teach, I don't know, like password managers, give them a password manager to use at home.
Yes.
Or, any of those things, right? It's not just, okay, do the right thing and do it only at work. No, it's do the right thing and do it all the time.
You're 100% correct. So
100%,
all of our cyber,
He's
all of our
97%
security awareness is revolved around
110%.
what's in it for me.
Yes.
So everything we do is how can you take this and deploy this in your home life, your personal life, your family, and then you take those good practices into the business.
Oh my
Which
God,
means you're
I
not a
agree
Facebook
so much.
user and you're not a.
You can easily be a Facebook user if you don't post
Sure.
your kids' photos as your
Right.
public profile photo.
Hey, look at my passport. I just went to India.
When you teach people how to use social media to protect their family versus to protect their company,
Boom.
that makes it personal.
What's in it
That
for me?
makes
Hold
it
on,
so that
time out. I
they
want
will-
Jason and April to have
April.
their own show on the network.
April.
It
Yes.
would be
Love
epic.
it. Love it,
Epic.
April.
And
Love it,
security
April.
awareness-
No, wait, we already
Security
have an
awareness
April
weekly.
Hold on, time
show.
out. Time out. Jason Wood.
I thought on some of this is we're talking about all of these different ideas. One of the things I kept thinking about is places I've worked. And one of the things I think we haven't talked about or considered is considering where your organization is at. I guess I'll call it maturity just for the lack of a better word. What's going to work in that organization? In some places, Jack's idea of walking somebody to the door is going to work, whereas trying to bring everybody in your team isn't because, well, the organization is just in that state. There's a lot of good things we've talked about, but it's just not going to work in some organizations because they're not at a level that they can even start to talk about that. You've got to step so far back into why does this even matter? Nobody gives a rip about it anyway. I'm going to ignore the heck out of you because what I need is something else over here and screw you.
So I'm going to open up my own Dropbox. I'm going to do my own AWS instances, and I'm just going to bypass all of you guys because.
And then you have a policy
Wait,
against that, and they get walked out the damn
Hold
door.
on, hold on, wait.
Damn right.
Hold on, Larry.
Yes. And then you have a policy against that type of thing,
Agreed.
and you get walked out the damn door for doing it.
Not the first time- not the
In
first
my
time.
experience, though,
First time you get education, second time you get a written
Yeah,
warning,
yeah.
third time
and,
you get
and
one.
to your policy, it has to have an enforcement section. This shit's going to happen to
So-
you if you
You have to train incoming users.
Here's-
Yeah, but hold on.
Here's
If
You
we're
have to
gonna-
train
comes-
all
if-
users
hold
because
on,
guess what?
Hold on. If third time's a charm, do I get a charm? And what
No.
is that?
Yeah, it's
Is
called
that-
unemployment.
Here's where that comes unglued.
it's a pink slip.
It's a golden shoe.
I've hit my sales quota 11 quarters in a row, and here is where your policies go. Right here.
Because you
I've
wanna
hit
know what?
my sales quota because what matters to the company
Is growth.
is growth,
Growth.
revenue. And now what we've
Dead
got
on.
is how do we reconcile this? But
So-
I just very quickly, we talked about
So,
FUD,
Jack-
and I
Jack,
want to say
and
one of the very
I want
real,
to follow that up.
okay,
In that,
one of the very real challenges we have. I'm not pro FUD, but the opposite of FUD is worse. Anybody who tries to sell anybody who tries to sell you certainty should be run away faster than people that try to sell you on FUD.
It's snake
Agreed.
oil.
It's
So
100%.
Yeah.
politically, religiously, or in security. If absolute is
It's garbage.
is garbage.
So Jack, we talk about buy-in. Having buy-in from your executives that this is the right thing to do, and you're going to stand by what you've chosen to do, is huge. You talk about the guy that's made, or the person that's made their sales quota 11 months in a row, and they surf for porn at work. Been there? They
Haven't we all?
Well, it's
Look,
not me.
I'm going
It's
to
not
look
me.
at the camera because
I mean,
every
he's
one
seen
of
it.
us
He's
has
witnessed
been
it.
there.
I mean, I've surfed porn at work because it was my job to do so. But there have been
you hiring?
organizations that I
Are
have
you
worked
hiring?
with.
Congratulations.
So there have been organizations that I've worked with that paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to relocate someone to come into their organization because they were the best at what they did. And 6 weeks later, they got busted surfing for porn, and they were out.
Right.
Because they had buy-in from management that what we have chosen to do is the right thing.
And commitment.
Well,
Because you can get the buy-in, and then all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, this
we got
guy's
the
making me
buy-in, but
$5 million more.
fantastic,
No,
right.
the
But there's-
commitment to actually follow
But
through
there's
is
more.
huge.
There's more pragmatic, real, more common examples where, there's people that understand the rules. They understand that there's policies. like don't take your work home with you, but they've got a deadline. They've got to get something done. So in order to meet their job demand, they break the rules. That's one example.
Right, like Edward Snowden broke the rules of taking his work home with him.
The second example is
no.
the worst offenders beyond.
Brent got that joke. Brent's laughing at my joke. Thank you, Brent.
Yeah. But the second example, which is more common that I've seen in all my work with customers, we talk about the general users, but in my experience, the worst offenders and violators of the policies
are the high performers.
Are the admins.
Yeah.
The ones that have the access rights.
Agreed.
That's
agreed.
True.
They're above the law.
Because complacency sets in.
I am above the law.
I read your email. But
I am the law.
Really pragmatic.
You can't handle the law.
Being really pragmatic about the people that are those extreme high performers.
Handle the truth.
Yep. Those extreme high performers. There are situations where they're not going to get walked out. But if you have buy-in, they're going to be like, oh, all right, look. And I'm going to pick on Wall Street because it's an easy target. We're publicly traded. This woman has closed just the insane deals. How do we deal with this problem? It's like, all right, we're going to move them off of, we're going to make sure that they have a company laptop that make sure is fully patched. We're not going to give them unrestricted
configuration managed.
We're going to configuration management. We're actually
patch it.
Here,
It's got
here's
AV.
something that here's people that are going to freak out about.
It's got
the
next
VPN
generation
that,
AV.
The VPN that this woman has, who's our leading salesperson, does not give her unrestricted access to the entire internal network. We're going to let her have what she needs. I would like to be idealistic. When I was in the car business, there was nothing like walking a sales manager out to make a difference. But sometimes it turns out that if you don't make any money, you don't get paid, and then you're not happy, right? So we have these, and the absolutism.
Hold on, Jack. I have a question for you. Is what you're saying is that if the high performers are experiencing growth in their own careers and helping the growth of the business, that we turn a blind eye to security?
No. I'm not saying we turn a blind eye. And I would love to apply all the rules to everybody, but let's be realistic. All right, how do we take this person or this team or whatever
and box them in
and make it so that we take an acceptable risk and minimize the exposures, and we do it. And it's like, no, in my idealistic world, we're like, you can't do that. And then somebody shows me how much that person makes compared to the rest of that unit. I'm like, okay, I would like with right. But this it's a learning experience, right? Because it's a learning experience. Right? Oh, maybe the rules that we're applying, we can put controls on so that they don't have to worry about it.
They can do their job without impacting risk.
Grow. And where we learn where we learn this is that person who sells 140% of quota quarter after quarter, and then we think about the poor schmucks that are on the call center. We're like, oh, maybe we could make it less miserable for them too. Is there a way we can do this? Is there a way we can do that? All right, you make all the money for us. We learn a lesson. It's like, oh, can we apply this lesson of compartmentalization? How much access do they need to
do their 140%
to Salesforce or whatever it is?
Right.
Oh, let's give them what they need.
Back to identity and access.
Yes.
Right, identity and access. Oh, why don't we watch? Why don't we watch?
But at the end of the day,
back to the tech segment. We log analysis. Let's make sure that nothing weird is happening with people that have higher levels of access.
But at the end of the day, you're talking about the success of the business, the outcome that we want,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
right? Because
Right.
you're going to see a call center employee get walked for the same violation that the best salesperson doesn't get walked for.
Absolutely.
Right.
You have to be consistent.
We're going to have that.
Jason.
We're going to have that. You're going to see that.
It's going to happen, and consistency is idealism.
So the challenge for us is how do we create an environment that's resilient enough to be able to say that best salesperson and our call center employee are on the same playing field. They're on that same playing field, right?
Their mission is the same.
It is.
Yeah.
It
policy,
is.
policy.
I hate to tell you
Assuming
that,
you know
but I
what
don't think that's
goddamn
gonna
policy
happen.
is.
Yeah.
You're saying policy, and going back to a basic,
And
part of
it's
the
not a
policy
basic.
has got to be making sure the right checks and balances are in to make sure that the police of your organization, the security people, also are being watched by somebody, or you have the same
I'm telling
controls
you,
over
good
that.
luck with this, because
Yeah, well, that's the
you
tricky-
go down there and say there's a guy that's bringing in massive sales
right.
numbers
Dead
and
right.
bringing in big bucks, and you
No,
say,
it's not
you
gonna
know, this
happen.
call center guy was looking at porn, fire him.
Yeah.
And they're gone.
Right.
You
And
go
then,
in
and then
there
you have the top sales
and
guy, and it's,
I've
hey,
sat
give him
there.
a
I
remedial
had
security
that,
training.
I've had that conversation with people and said that person needs this, and they were looking at porn at work, and they went, yeah, right. There's nothing we can do there.
Exactly.
I mean, there's that one's going to be
All
a
right,
tough call.
Well, that's the owner's son at the car dealer. Oh, right.
That's a societal
Hi, Ricky.
problem.
So anyway,
well, I will.
But we
I
have
will
to deal with
say-
that dynamic.
I-
Our job is to deal with that dynamic.
But I will
We
say
have
one
to
of the
know
things
it.
that I was taken away from what Jack was saying was, and I saw this. I used to manage Top Secret, and we had people that would violate, and there was no middle ground there. I mean, that was if you. I don't care if you're an admiral or you were, the guy that was sweeping up. If you violated, you got punished.
That's a no
And-
tolerance
but we
policy.
didn't fire them. So maybe there's a middle ground. And what happened to those
trust?
people was there was
Is
a
that
kind
zero
of
trust?
inherent
Zero
punishment.
trust.
So-
They ended
we're
up
just gonna
having to
lock
be
down their
escorted
shit.
everywhere they went. So, like my boss, who was a retired admiral, got a DUI. He got his top secret pulled. So, if he wanted to use a terminal, he had to have an escort with him at all times. And that awful suffering of that, if he wanted to go to the bathroom, he had a person with him in the stall at all times. That kind of maybe helped reinforce that idea. He didn't get walked to the gate because we just really couldn't do that.
Right.
But at the same time, he didn't get away with it either. He got punished, and it was a pretty sucky
So
punishment.
that means we need a bunch of bathroom patrollers in our corporations.
oh wait, I
to
got to go
make-
follow.
That was
Jeff.
my whole point.
Applications open. Send
Yeah.
send
Ger-
information to Security Weekly.
Geriatric Row has to take a bathroom break.
Wait,
Yeah.
wait. Mr. Tiny Bladder is
I
throwing that
already went
stone.
once.
I did.
Holy
I already
cow.
went once.
Paul has the bladder of a small child,
did.
and he keeps it in a jar
And
in
I'm
his
old.
basement.
Notice the glasses.
Yeah.
I'm also old because I can't see my screen unless I have these glasses on.
And they're yellow.
That's true.
And they are yellow.
because he
it's
needs
1x
to be-
magnifiers.
It's his gunner glasses, so he can.
But they're
like,
1x magnifier in the gunner glasses.
Oh, you cheater!
Yeah. It's
got his
Cheater,
cheaters.
you old bastard.
They're cheaters.
He's got his cheaters that he's peed on.
Matt, I think we talked about it earlier that today you're looking at security management, and they're facing the same challenges that CIOs faced 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah,
Show how you add value to the business.
value.
Yeah.
Show
We're
how you
a
add
cost
value.
center.
To the
We are
business.
ultimately a cost center.
And
Yeah.
Unless
but we can
but
be
we don't
more than
have
a cost
to
center. We don't
be.
have to be
agree.
a cost center.
I agree. We,
don't
can
have to
add
be.
we
value.
can add value.
Absolutely.
And
I agree.
CISOs have to understand that they can add value.
Matt
to
and
the
I,
business.
Matt and I had a conversation
I am
earlier.
not arguing with you.
No. You agree? Yeah, no.
Yep.
So Matt and I had a conversation earlier that I needed to be able to, within my industry, because we are a technology services company and a managed services company, I need to be able to show our leadership, the CEO, how we're adding value and we're not a roadblock. Traditional thought processes where we're an insurance policy. Security is an insurance policy. And I tried to teach my CEO that no, we're not an insurance policy, we're ABS brakes. We're stopping you from having to click that insurance policy and go get the money, and actually, at the end of the day, having to take.
Jason, I think that's really smart.
And
That's a
that's
great
where the
way to
We're
risk-based
ABS brakes, right?
policy
We're
comes
Yeah.
preventing us from having to
Right.
go to insurance and
How do
actually
you
pay it
prevent-
out.
The unsung heroes in this industry that are listening to this show going, I work tirelessly. I prevent our company from
Yeah.
having breaches.
Right.
They listen
Yep.
to the show to get information on how
Absolutely.
to make that better.
And the moral of the story, Paul,
So-
is
so
everything
true.
that my department does, we align to business value. If I speak to a customer, guess what? I align an opportunity number to it so I can show our leadership that we helped grab this customer and keep the customer. We helped this customer renew their managed services agreement. We helped onboard this customer because guess what? We passed their assessment.
Right.
I align
right. They
it
had
to
questions.
the business value.
Hold on. They had questions. You had answers. That's
And we-
a commercial
and-
somewhere.
At 100%.
But it's true.
100%.
And what
Right.
is value? This brings us back to the initial question of why does security matter?
It's integrity.
No.
I think it comes down to
No,
integrity,
no. It's not just
integrity
it.
and
It's business
trust.
enablement.
Whoa, wait.
you're all
I
wrong.
will
No,
take it
you're-
a higher. I will take it one higher level. It's business resilience.
You're all wrong. It's about the end user. It's not about the business. Who cares about the business? It's about the end user. The end user is the one that matters.
I will.
I can't believe your face right
the
now.
end user has a
No.
component, but to me,
Without
it's
the end
about,
user, the business doesn't exist.
If
Yes,
hold
but
on, Matt. Hold on, Matt. If the
Without
business,
the business, the end user doesn't exist.
but hold on.
It's a symbiotic
they're not employed.
relationship.
They're
But
not
Jason,
employed
without
anymore.
the end user, the business doesn't
Sure,
exist.
agreed.
I watch a lot of Shark Tank, right? You could have a sponge that lets people clean the kitchen. That's totally fine. In our industry, it's a user, to April's point, that allows them to do something with technology
Without
to
the
get
customer, the
Ultimately,
business doesn't
to me-
exist.
Correct, wait,
yes.
wait, wait,
Without
It's
the
not
customer,
it's
not the user. It's the customer.
It's
Without the
about
customer.
driving the
No, no, no.
customer relationship and the revenue
It's
streams
not
that
about-
drive
Hold
the
on.
business.
I love that April is waving her hands and
I am
getting
waiting
animated.
on-
Is the
I am
greatest
in
thing ever.
Yeah, I'm in the thing.
I love it.
so,
I'm
okay.
in the thing. Get in the thing,
I am
April.
not the customer. I am a human, and I am a user, and I'm a consumer, and I'm a provider. And I want my data to be secure, and I want it to be private, and I want to understand how my data is being used. And this is what we work for. We want safety. I want safety. I don't want my.
Look, you do. But not a lot of people
No,
do
but people
care
do.
in some
They do,
respects.
though.
The customer as a whole
I-
does, but the individual user, I don't know that they do.
No,
I don't
disagree
want
with you, Matt.
my I don't want my power provider
Mm-hmm.
to provide me something that is hacked.
Because you're a customer of that provider.
Correct.
Exactly. I am a.
You're not an end
human
user
being.
working for
I'm
the
not an
provider.
end user.
You're a customer of the provider.
And,
But that
and unless
speaks
you
to
see
integrity.
a customer as a human being,
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
we
but it's-
are not doing anything unless you see the end user as the person who is the recipient of security. What are we doing? Because I want my security, I want your security, I want everybody's security.
Which means you're
wanna
not
know-
on Facebook.
I am,
Right?
but I
I'm
don't
not.
message
See,
on Facebook.
No. See, this is my point. You're on Facebook, I'm not. See, from a user perspective, we have a different
no,
view.
hold
but
on,
from a
hold
customer
on.
perspective, it's different.
I have a persona on
Don't.
Facebook. I
don't
have a
hold
limit
on. Hold on.
Facebook.
Hold.
I
Don't
was going to
mix.
say,
Don't.
wait, shit, Matt's not on Facebook?
No.
Gotta go.
Listen.
You're getting
but
so
don't-
big
hold
here.
on,
She's
hold
sitting
on.
next to me.
But
I
I
gotta
am
be
not.
careful over
Don't
here.
mix.
All right.
Don't
About an
mix
hour
social
ago.
media that is an opportunistic kind
Yes,
of
that's a
opportunity
very
with
different
what
business.
April's
Yeah.
talking about. If I'm,
I'm thinking not
hold on.
B2C.
Matt,
I'm
you
thinking
worked-
B2B.
Yep.
If it,
B2B
no,
is
but
a
even in
different
B2C, Matt,
relationship.
you
But
worked in the
B2B always has a B2C. There's a
Yes.
chain.
There is a C component,
No,
but the C
imagine-
component doesn't override the B
It
part.
does.
I'm just
because
waiting for the
It
ATM.
doesn't.
weakest link in the
I'm
chain
sorry,
is
it
the one
doesn't.
that fails.
It doesn't.
The weakest link in a chain of third-party vendors, you have third-party vendor, third-party vendor, third-party vendor, third-party vendor, and one of them fails, everybody fails.
But
That's true.
I agree with April. It comes down to the consumer. If we're talking about a security product, sure, there's B2B communications. However, the customer being happy and getting value from that product makes the whole system
Absolutely.
work. When
It's
we talk
personal.
customer, when
You
we
said customer.
You said
I'm
customer.
the customer. You're the customer. He's the customer.
Sure.
They're the
All right.
customer.
When we
We're
talk
all the
about
customer.
industrial control systems, I'm the customer. I'm buying power. Integrity plays into that. I want to make sure when I get my bill that it has integrity.
Before
Not just-
April
Right?
climbs over this table and murders somebody. All right. I'm gonna try to take us a step back. and see
Can
if it
we?
works or
Because that
not.
would be great
All right,
television,
So
right?
I actually received a comment and question from a viewer. You were talking about viewers and what they were looking for, right?
Yes.
So
Let's hear it,
the
Brett.
comment and questions are: risk doesn't exist until it's measured. How do you measure it? How accurate
true.
is the measure?
Risk does exist. So a risk exists even if it's not measured, just like a bug exists even if nobody knows about it.
Again, I agree with April.
Brent, to your point.
It exists, but is it
I've been
relevant?
there,
Wait,
okay?
it exists, but is it
I've been
relevant?
there.
Is
I
it
have,
relevant?
Right? Risk is an interesting concept, right? It can be measured. It has to be measured in a way that we understand what its impact to us as a business is, right? And it's hard to do it on an individual by individual basis, but we have to look at it at a more holistic purview. And that means we have to understand the risk of the relationship between primarily in our industry, is business to business. We don't. Most of us don't work in a business to consumer environment. There are some.
We're still a third party to that, man.
We are, but you have to understand the impact to the business and what an individual consumer in that business impacts to your business. And so it can be measured, it can be quantified. It is harder, I think, for most people to fully understand.
April's look on her face is priceless right now. Priceless. I love it.
I mean, I'm sorry, but as a consumer, yes, business to business may matter, but as a human, as a person that exists in this world.
Look, but wait.
No, I'm not done.
I'll give you one example. Your Facebook example. If you were worried as a consumer about the protection of your data, you wouldn't be on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook because I don't trust it.
Now,
I never trusted it. I haven't trusted it from day one.
Here's how I respond to that. I use Facebook, but I don't use actual conversations on Facebook. I use other methodologies, which are end-to-end encrypted. So that argument is a fallacy.
You can control what you put on social media.
I control.
You can't control what you put on social media, but most humans don't think of it the way we think of it. Humans do not think the way we think at this table.
That's what I worry about.
I agree with you.
I don't worry about what we think. I worry about what everybody else thinks.
And we think differently than everybody
and
else.
I want them to think more like us. I want them to watch
but
the show.
That is a super hard problem to solve.
I think Keith has something to say.
No, humans are lazy. They just post shit. They do stuff that they want to do.
This is saying this.
He's trying to jump in here.
If I have no other impact on the world, my impact is that I can teach other people that social media is dangerous.
Red card.
Red card.
Oh, red card came out.
I'm sorry, Keith. I'm sorry, Keith. I had to make a point. I love you.
So,
They're quiet,
Keith. As important as privacy is, and as again, I haven't used Facebook since 2013, so I get it. I'm there.
Oh shit!
But I think
you too? I gotta delete some friends.
The thing that we're overlooking is twofold. First of all, the thing that we're overlooking is, of course, the fact that we are not representative of the general populace around the world, let alone in the United States, for that matter.
Yeah,
and
I mean, I'm wearing an ugly sweater, a kilt. Matt has a Santa suit on. Doug has the most ridiculous freaking hat I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, speaking of hats, we are both wearing two.
Hold on. I'm
sorry,
not
Keith.
my
Back
point.
to you.
Let Keith go.
Which is this.
I love Keith. So.
As much as we are representative of the security industry, the end users, the people that we try to serve, don't care about these things as vehemently as we do. And therefore, we think about them in a different way, and we try to strive for a higher standard than they probably do.
Sure.
Our parents, our friends, our significant others, they have their security measures largely because, by the way, we kind of somewhat force them on them, but we also share and show them how those things work. The business, at the end of the day, is in the interest of doing business, right? Whatever it takes to do business.
Yep.
And that means sometimes cutting corners, often cutting corners, making the exceptions for certain individuals that work in the sales organization that perform well. So to the extent that we can have an idealist state, we have to come to terms with the fact that, to Matt's point, and again, I have a degree in psychology, so I'm going to wield it here for a moment, humans are lazy. We will do the least amount of effort possible to get to what we need to do. So at the end of the day, as much as I appreciate everything that you're saying, April, because I agree with a lot of it, I don't think that it necessarily represents the people we're trying to protect, which, by the way, at the end of the day, really isn't people unless you follow Citizens United. It's the business.
But we are the people. We are the extreme.
We are.
Wait. We may be the extreme.
We are the children. We are the world. We are the users.
I will hold all of your hands after this, but we are the same people we are protecting. So if you think of the end user as yourself, which is what I try to do,
but
then
you set the bar so high. The problem
what's
is
wrong with that?
Yeah, what's wrong with that, man?
There's nothing wrong with that, but we have to be realistic that the normal human is not at that bar.
Wait.
Matt, I'm pragmatic.
I want to push back really hard on something you've said and something that
You can't.
Humans are not lazy. Humans are not lazy.
Don't call me a human.
Humans.
You're a human.
We all resent
Humans
that.
are not lazy.
My humanness.
Female human.
We are focused on efficiency.
In self-gratification.
Instant gratification. Instant gratification.
So path of least resistance is how we survive as a species.
Yes, I was going to say it's not
if we
efficiency, it's
decide that
survival.
if we're all gonna focus on only eating flamingo tongues, we're going to end. We're going to do what works easily. So when we call people lazy, even though it's what we think, we're like, hey, you're trying to get your job done. How can we make it easier for you to get your job done in a secure
If
way?
flamingers
If I
would-
tell you you're fucking lazy, my first F-bomb of the night, I've lost you, right? As if I tell you you're effing lazy, I've lost you. I can think it. It's why we all have the mute button on our phone, and every now and then, because I know we've all done this on conference calls, right? Like mute, and you hit the wrong button, and everybody hears what you said.
Yep.
And that's why we all keep our resumes up to date. But anyway,
I don't have to do that anymore.
lazy.
Thank you.
Yeah, lazy.
Can I get an order of flamingo tongues over here, please?
I want Cajun style flamingo
Yeah,
tongues if you don't
absolutely.
mind.
No, the Cajun ones. I don't want.
I want the Cajun ones.
The path to least resistance
Right.
creates a level of laziness. I say
Yeah,
that
no,
in
I-
generic.
But it's
it's a fair word. It's a fair word,
it's
but I want
see
to.
a link,
It's
we click the
complacency.
link,
It's
we do-
complacency. It's not laziness.
So-
it is
It's
complacency.
complacency.
So how about again back to basics? Anything we do that makes doing things securely easier.
I'm going to bring this all back to pragmatism. Hold on.
Pragmatic marketing, we're back to it.
I think Java sums it up.
Pragmatism.
Hold on, time out.
I'm sorry.
We're over time.
No way.
No, already?
I would debate this until I die.
It's April. It's April Security
Back in
Weekly.
high school, here we go.
There's going to be a fist fight
Why
outside
wasn't
by
this
the
a 3-hour
flagpole
show?
at 4 p.m.
Why wasn't this a 3-hour show,
You mean
Paul?
4 a.m., right?
4 a.m. I don't care what time it is.
Hey,
It's
Paul,
4
where's
a.m.
Twitchy when we need him?
Can we have part 2?
We should Twitch this.
Yeah.
Paul,
We want part
where's
2.
Twitchy when we
We
need
want
him?
part 2.
Hold on.
Kill it.
I love this so much. April.
I love you.
I love you too. April. Final comments. That's how much I love you.
Wow. The floor is yours, Matt.
Stay tuned for
With or
Awareness
without
Security
rebuttals?
Weekly.
I'm a little verklempt. I'm sorry.
Little what?
Verklempt.
Hold on.
Come on, that's enough.
Okay.
April,
on,
just
Saturday Night Live.
promote the
Okay.
new show we just
Nobody's
created.
allowed to talk
When
about
we-
April. Hold on. Nobody's allowed to talk about April.
When we think of a user, we have to think of ourselves. We are the user. We are the Facebook user. We are the end user. When I use a wireless service like the company I worked for, and I was using their wireless service and I got a discount, it was a great service at a discount. But I have to evaluate that service as an end user, not as an employee. I'm not evaluating that as in a way that's impacted by pay or bonuses or anything like that. I'm evaluating that as something that I'm going camping in such and such mountain and I don't have signal, or I have signal and everybody else doesn't. We're evaluating things as humans. We have to think of ourselves, not just the public. It's not them versus us. It's not us versus them. It's not developers versus security. It's security and developers working to make a company, to make a product, to make an idea happen. And,
Thank you.
And that's what I believe in.
Thank you very much, April. I want to say I enjoyed this discussion so much. I mean, anytime all of us or most of us get together from the Security Weekly family, I greatly value everyone's thoughts, ideas, and opinions. And I hope that our listeners have gained some insights and knowledge from that. So all of you here today in studio or remote, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Larry, the last show of the year.
Happy
Take
New
us
Year.
out, Larry.
We are the world.
When I think about the users,
we are the
I touch
children.
myself.
Over and out.